Hi everyone, it's Karen Baker and I'm here with a really simple project for you, which is a purse. This is fairly simple. If you're a beginner and you like a bit of a challenge, this is going to be great for you. And I wanted to go through some of the basic supplies that you're going to need to be able to make this. It opens, we've got a press stud, it's got no zips if you're a bit scared of zips, and you've got little pockets. And it's the same both sides. Really nice and easy. Vlieseline have got some packs which are super useful, which are actually meter lengths already pre-packed. So I'm going to be using Decovil 1 Light. There is Decovil 1 and this is a slightly different version, Decovil 1 Light. It's a lighter version of the original Decovil 1. And also I'm going to be using Bondaweb, which lots of you will know and love too. You're going to need some fabric, whatever fabric you want to use. If you want to make it really easy for yourself, don't get a directional fabric, although I'll explain what to do if you have got one. Something with a bit of a focus in case you want to decorate the front of your purse like this. And then you're going to need some press studs or some poppers, or you could have a magnetic snap if that's what you'd like. You're going to need some sort of a pressing cloth. This is my favourite. It's another Vlieseline product called the iron-on cloth. There's 2 of them in each pack and they make absolutely brilliant presents. This is mine, had it for about a year and it's been in the wash and it's still going strong. The other thing you're going to need is some sort of cutting implements, whatever is your preference, something to measure with, and you're also going to need a sewing machine as well. So let's get going. So to begin with, we want a piece of fabric that is 37.5 inches by 8.5 inches. Now, I said before about it being directional. If you have got a directional fabric, just make sure that the pattern is going this way. So it's going from top to bottom. Because when we finish our purse, the pattern is going to be showing this way. If you get one without a direction, that just might be simpler for you all round, but that's what to do if you've got a directional fabric. So cut your fabric out, and then once you've cut it out, you're going to want to fold it in half across the lengthways. It's quite a long piece of fabric. It's suitable if you've got a long quarter or you've got a ½ meter of fabric. You're just going to be using sort of the long edge. And you want to put it so that the wrong sides are together. So you're going to fold it in half. And if you want to press it at that point, you can do. And then we're just going to do a simple bit of measuring. So with the fold line on the right and your 2 raw edges on the left, what you're going to want to do, I know you're going to have to follow these numbers at the top and it will make sense. So we're going to bring our folded line in until we get to 9 centimeters. So we're counting 9 centimeters from the left hand side, which takes us to there, and you're just going to fold the fabric over. You don't need to worry too much about being exact, but you do need to just make sure that these raw edges, both top and bottom, are aligned so that your fold is at a good 90 degrees. So you're going to do that and then press that. That is just slightly over another, fold it in half, but it's 9 centimeters. So you just count 9 centimeters from these 2 raw edges and fold it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it again. So taking the folded top, we're going to fold it 5.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, and we're going to fold it over again. So it's a bit like a concertina. And then the last fold we're going to do is we're just going to this end here, the folded end again, we're just going to lay it down. So you've got roughly 1/4 inch between the end of the fold and this top little piece here. So in case you need to see them, you're going to fold it along at 9 inches and then fold it back on itself to 5.5 and then leave 1/4 inch gap on the right. You'll know you've got it right because it's starting to look a bit like a pouch. So you're going to have, this is going to be a little pocket and this bit here is going to be a pocket. So what you need to do now is pin it. You will need pins for this because we're going to be pinning it to itself. But what we want to make sure is that we're only pinning this top flap. We don't want to pin it to the bottom because we don't want any of the stitching to go through to what will end up be the front and the back of our purse. So grab your pins and we're just going to put some pins. There we go, try and move it there. Just put a few pins in. Again, we're just pinning the top. Do the same on the other side. Keep the pins away from the center because we're about to sew the middle of it. So can you see here, if I open up my fabric, I can open it up and the pins are only in that side. So what we want to do now to make sure that we're not sewing through is pull this bottom bit away. So we're just focusing on this one layer of fabric and the little fold. So what we need to do now is we need to measure it. It's going to be 4.25 inches from the left roughly to the center point. My ruler seems to have escaped you right now, so I shall do it on the board. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4.25. So we're going to be roughly, you'll measure it more precisely than me. So we're just going to put 2 little lines. This is just a water soluble pen. You may have other preferred ways of doing it, but we're going to sew from this little bit here down the middle so we can hold cards or a bit of money, whatever we want to do. So we're going to sew from here to here, and we're also going to sew just above this little pocket here. So we're just going to make sure that is nicely secured. So I'm just going to take it to my sewing machine. Now what you probably want to do is use a thread that is going to blend in with your fabric so that if you do any wonky lines, it's not going to be as noticeable. So when you start off as well worth just giving a little bit of a back stitch, because this is the little bit here at the top that is going to take a little bit of and back stitch again. Sorry, I didn't want to keep talking because this is quite loud. This is going to have a little bit of stress at this point, so just make sure that you do a little bit of back stitching both at the top and the bottom. Obviously once I've finished stitching, I can just spray a little bit of water and I'm going to get rid of those little marks that I made. So we've done that little bit there. So now we're just going to sew along this little bit here. And again, just make sure that when you're sewing, you haven't got this little bit here connected, because we want to make sure that we're only sewing that little bit and we leave the other part entirely free. Right, let's just sew. If I can find the pedal. There we go. Just trim it off. Okay, so we've now got our pockets and our base sewn. So I can remove the pins now. And again, at this point, I would just give it a quick press. Let's get my iron here. So just give it a quick press. It's always going to look better if you keep pressing your projects as you go along. And at this point, I can also get my water, give it a quick spray and get rid of those marks. Okay, that will soon dry off. So our next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually attach a couple of things, and we've got to make decisions here. So if you're thinking about using some press studs or poppers, you can do it now or you can do it after we've attached the Decovil One Light. If you find it hard to sort of push through things because maybe you've got some challenges with your hand mobility, it may be that you want to sew your poppers on at this point now. You can sew them on afterwards. It's entirely up to you. Let's pretend that we're going to do them now. So what I need to do is have my piece here. Let's bring it into view. So we've got a couple of things that we need to decide. We need to decide where to put our poppers. And we also need to decide about whether we're going to put anything on the front of our purse. So if we're going to do that, now would be a good time to do it, because we don't want any of the stitching that we might be doing going through onto the back, this part or this part of our purse. Now, one of the things that I did with this purse was I actually added a motif. Now that was just from another piece of fabric. Do have a look through your collections and have a look for shapes or things that you think would be good decoratively on your project. So I have got a couple here to show you. So first of all, let's have a little look at this one. Okay, so I started out by just trimming around, leaving plenty around the edge. And then I just added a piece of interfacing already on. I just wanted to give my little moth a little bit of structure. And then I got my Bondaweb. Now, if you've not used Bondaweb before, it's a double-sided way of getting your projects glued to each other. So this is in essence a double-sided glue or product, for want of a better word. You will notice that one side is matte and feels quite papery, and the other side almost glistens. You can, if you look carefully, it'll be hard to show you on this camera, but you can tell which side is the adhesive and which side is the paper carrier. So what I want to do now is I want to get my shape, and I want to put my piece with the paper side on the outside, so the adhesive layer is going to go onto the back of my shape. So I'm just going to put it like that, and then using dry heat, just for about 5 seconds, we're just going to press. And my heat is actually, it's a bit high. I would tend to have it on 2, but it's 2 to 3. So just 5 seconds or so, press it. And then your Bondaweb is going to be adhered to whatever the shape is. And then all we need to do, I would let that dry, I would let it cool down, and then you're going to remove the layer. It will be fairly obvious if you've done it right, because you can actually feel it's like a very soft layer that's actually on your project. So once you've done that and you've got your Bondaweb nicely onto the back of your project or your piece of fabric, you're going to trim it out. So you can trim it out at this point, and then once you've got to that point, you will have something that looks like this. And then all we would do, depending on where we were going to put it, we would just lay it down onto our sewn piece. Now do bear in mind that, let me just try and get these little ends together. When you were thinking about where to position it on your purse, these bits at the bottom here, you've got a seam allowance that you're going to be sewing. So if you sort of took 1/4 of an inch away, so that it gives you an idea of roughly where you think you would like your motif to be. And then make sure you center it. And then all we will do is we'll put a damp cloth. This is where the iron-on cloth comes in super handy. I just lay it over, and I just spray it so it's nice and damp. And then I'm going to press it. Let me just check I have got this nicely lined up. There we go. And then I would press it for 5 to 6 seconds again. Just press. Okay, and make sure all the little edges are sorted. And then you would leave that to cool down. And the great thing about the iron-on cloth, you can see exactly where you've been ironing. So that's where we've got to at this point. Now all we need to do is we need to add our poppers. I found the best thing to do was to mark 3/4 of an inch from the top and roughly 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. You've centered it, so it's going to be roughly 4 1/4 by 3/4. And then I would just get my poppers and I would sew them. Poppers are nice and easy. You're just sewing one side like that, and then the other side that's going to go into it, you would put, let's see if I can get it to shot, you would put it at the bottom. If you're not sure whether they fit together, just, try them out first, make sure you've got the right side, and then sew them. But again, make sure that when I am sewing, I'm only sewing onto this top layer and I don't go through into the bottom layer. So once I've got all of those, decide whether you want to put poppers or you want to put something else, whatever you want to do to close your purse, make sure that's done. And then we're going to go on to adding the Decovil One light. So once I've sewn that, let me remove all these things out of the way. I'm going to grab, there we go, take that off, my Decovil One light. Now this has got an almost leather texture. It's a lovely, lovely product, and it just gives real stability and a little bit of structure to the project. So imagine I've got my poppers here and I've got my motif already on there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to lay it out. This is how you're going to work out the right size for your Decovil. So if I pop it like this, and if I show you through, I know it's a rather big piece for the frame, but you're going to measure whatever you've got. So I could give you the rough dimensions, but depending on how you have put your pieces together, how you've sewn them, the best way of doing it is to just lay it out, fit it to the piece of fabric now it's been sewn, and we're going to bond it together. So again, we're going to need a pressing cloth for this. You're going to have it so that it's the adhesive side up. You can tell it's the adhesive side up because it's got a shine to it, and the dull side is what you're going to have laying down, face down. It's worth saying as well, if you want to put any markings on it, it's much easier to mark on the dull side than it is on this side. So we're just going to lay it down. I'm not going to show you all of this because it's not terribly interesting, but put your pressing cloth on, make sure it's damp, and we are just going to press 6 seconds in each area, and we're just going to go through and we're going to press it. We're going to go through the whole lot. Don't iron, we're just lifting our iron and pressing. We're not sweeping our iron across, we're just pressing it. So you're going to do that across all of your piece of fabric, making sure that you check each time. If you've done it like this, just lift it. It's absolutely fine. And just straighten it back again. And you're going to go through and press that the whole way across, and then leave it for 30 minutes to make sure that it's got a proper bond. So on to the next bit. Once we've done that, you're going to have a bonded piece. And now I've changed fabrics, apologies. You're going to have a bonded piece together. You'll have your press studs on, and now we're going to do the sewing. So what we're going to do is we're going to put right side to right side, making sure that those have matched up. And you'll see here that I've just marked a little mark about 1.25 inches away from the edge. And the reason that we're doing that is we need as big a turning area as possible. So we're going to be sewing from this part here. Make sure you back stitch well, because there'll be a bit of stress when we turn it out. We're going to go along to the end, all the way down to the bottom. We don't need to sew along this part here, so we're just going to go on the sides to that little edge of the top, and on the sides to that little edge there. So I'm just going to sew it, and then we're going to turn it. Right, so I've sewn it now. It was with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I did clip or pin the edges just to make sure that it didn't move. Now all we need to do is we need to clip the edges, making sure that you don't cut into your sewing line. So just do that on each of the edges. We're just going to do a little half point there and there. That's just going to reduce the bulk and make turning it a little bit better at the end. And the other thing that you need to do as well is just fold this back and give it a little bit of a press. And the reason that that's helpful is when we turn it out, we're just going to top stitch it closed. And if you've got this little seam line already ironed, it's just much easier to join it together at the end. Right, so here comes the challenging bit. It will feel a little bit unusual because it's got a little bit of structure to it. Maybe if you haven't used Decovil One Light before, you might find this a bit challenging. Don't worry about it creasing, because once we've turned it, what we're going to end up doing is just pressing it again. So any wrinkles that are caused right now will actually come out at the end, so you don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to try and do this as quickly as possible. Okay, just tapping it, there we go. And the other thing that's well worth having is something to turn it out with. I've just got a little wooden turner here and just gently push the edges out. That'll give you a really nice result. And again, on this side, do exactly the same. Just be gentle when you're getting to the edges, that you don't push through the stitching. But again, just using a little tool like this, just gently ease out the edge until you've got the corners sorted. There you go, it will come out. And there we've got the very basic bits of it turned out. Then you have to turn the top corners and repeat that. And again, just ease it out gently. It will come out. You just need to give it a little bit of care. I'm trying to speed through so that it's not so dull for you all. But this is what you're wanting to end up with. Obviously, take a little bit of time and care. Okay, and this is how it's going to end up. We've got little pockets here, and you can see where we did that little bit of ironing, it just naturally closes together. And so all I would do now is I would pin or clip the top together. And it's up to you whether you want to press it now and then press it again at the end, or just wait till the end. And you're just going to smooth it out to make sure that it's nicely turned out. And what we're going to do now is we would just sew, because we've got extra bulk here, and depending on how much your sewing machine can cope with bulk, it might be easier just to go, if you fold it over and work out where roughly the top of your purse is going to be, if you just sew maybe from this little bit here, and you're just going to sew a running stitch all the way down the end. So you can see here on this one, I've just sewn from there and there, taken it all the way down. And again, use a stitch that matches so that you won't see any little wiggles like I've done. And then just give it a lovely press and you are good to go. That's how we make a very simple but effective purse. I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial. We would love to see what you come up with in your choices of fabrics and little motifs at the front. Do tag us, do visit socials for Vlieseline. We've got a website, there's Facebook, we've got a great YouTube channel with tons of tutorials for lots of our lovely Vlieseline products. And do get in touch with us. We would love to see and be inspired by the things that you make. See you soon. Thanks. Bye.